Good afternoon or morning, depending where you are. Welcome to Fibromyalgia Association Canada's Fibromyalgia Chat with Trudy and Lynn. It's so nice to have you here with us today. So I'm Trudy Flynn, Chair of the Board of Directors of Fibromyalgia Association Canada, or as we like to call it, FAC. I'm going to keep these initial comments brief so we can get right to the chat. So thank you for joining us. If you're not a member of FAC, you can join at the link that Mario will add to the chat. FAC is committed to growing our membership for our advocacy work because there is power in numbers and together we are stronger. Before we get started, I'd like to just cover a few housekeeping items. If you have any technical issues, please email webmaster@fibrocanada.ca or tag Mario in the chat. Mario is the vice chair of FAC and our webmaster and chair of the education committee and so much more. There's so much more for FAC. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We have closed captioning enabled, and this presentation is being recorded for those of you who could not attend at this time and for our YouTube channel. And I'll ask Mario if he could please put that link in our chat. All participants will be muted, and we ask that you also turn off your video so only the presenters will be in the video. So let's get started. My name, as I said, is Trudy Flynn, and I am the chair of the board of directors at Fibromyalgia Association Canada, or FAC. I would like to start by saying that although people attending may be spread across Canada, I am located in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which the Mi'kmaq people first signed with the British Crown in 1726. These treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. In Nova Scotia, we are all treaty people. As part of this acknowledgement, I also recognize the histories, contributions, and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people who have been here for over 400 years. I recognize that without action, an acknowledgement is empty. An acknowledgement marks the beginning of the work ahead of us, not the end. And this acknowledgement is part of FAC's journey towards reconciliation. So I do have a disclaimer. Although Lynn and I share over 60 years of experience living with fibromyalgia, the chat that we're about to have is for informational and educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice or consultations with healthcare professionals. We are not doctors and are speaking from our own experience. Remember, everyone with fibromyalgia is different, and different treatments and self-care methods will work differently for everyone. Always consult your doctor for personalized medical advice. Never disregard or delay seeking professional medical advice or treatment because of something you might have heard on Fibromyalgia Chats. So, Lynn and I have both had fibromyalgia, each for over 30 years. And I'm going to introduce myself a bit more, and then I'm going to turn it over to Lynn to introduce herself. So I live in Nova Scotia. As I said, I have had fibromyalgia for over 30 years. And I also have a daughter who was diagnosed at the age of 8. So caregiving was part of my steep learning curve. Besides FAC, I also do work with the Canadian Institute of Health Research, or CIHR, as well as the Maritime Sport Support Unit. These both involve promoting and participating in patient-oriented research, which means incorporating patients onto the research team, because who knows better than the patient what areas should be researched. And with that, I will turn it over to Lynn.
Hi, everyone. Well said, Trudy. I'm so glad you shared some extra things about you. That's really important. So, I'm Lynn Cooper. I am a person who lives with fibromyalgia, neuropathic pain, nociceptive pain, actually, um, from a workplace injury. And so, in my work life, I'm the Director of Research and Education of the Canadian Injured Workers Alliance. I'm also on the development team of the Power Over Pain portal, which is housed at the Ottawa Hospital Research Institute. And I manage several research projects that look into stigma about injured workers and also self-help and modalities and how those can assist people at work to remain well and remain functioning and being able to stay at work. Um, I always promote the inclusion of the people in everything we do. You know, it goes with that nothing about us without us related to chronic pain and work injury. So I'm coming to you from very windy, stormy Southern Ontario, Kitchener, in fact. And I'm on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee nations, and I honor these lands on which I live, work, and play. I'm so glad to be back with you, Trudy. This is wonderful. We've had a little bit of a break in our Fibro chats, and I hear that people have been asking about them. And so I'll share a little bit more about that later. But this has been an incredible month for fibromyalgia and for FAC, and I would love to hear some things that you're going to share with us.
You're very right, Lynn. May has been a very busy month, and that's as it should be, because May is Fibromyalgia Awareness Month, with May 12th being Fibromyalgia Awareness Day, which is recognized by Health Canada, which is always a feather in our cap. So, one of the biggest things that we did this month is our illumination campaign. In 2022, we started the illumination campaign to help bring awareness to our condition. And in that year, we had 90 buildings and landmarks light up in purple to raise awareness for us. In 2023, we had 133 buildings and landmarks light up. And I'm very proud to say that in 2024, we've had over 166 buildings and landmarks light up. So our goal is actually, you have to keep reaching. So our goal is to have 500 over the next number of years. And it's very heartwarming when you see Canada light up for fibromyalgia awareness. So FAC as well, we had another thing we did in May was we had a really great presentation by Christine Lamontagne on juvenile fibromyalgia. This presentation, I must say, is well worth watching, even as an adult, because she had some really great pointers in the video that apply to us as well. And you can access that presentation along with other presentations. I will get Mario to stick that in the chat, or I can do that after I turn it back over to you, Lynn. As well, we held our AGM yesterday to complete, not to complete the month, but to add to the month. And we had some really positive feedback from that AGM, and it was really nice to reach people who otherwise had no one. And so we're very happy that they found us, and they're very happy that they found us. And so today being the 28th, we're going to finish off the month with a social media blitz, thanking everyone who participated in our illumination campaign by calling them out with their social media handles and And we are producing a video of all the places that illuminated across Canada. And believe it or not, we have already started planning for next year. So, Lynn, I'll turn that back over to you.
Well, I just really want to congratulate you. This is amazing. And I think a little birdie told me that you've been making some international connections as well, with folks wanting to illuminate internationally. So congrats to FAC for taking the lead on this. And I want to commit to being involved on the illumination team. Um, and wouldn't it be awesome to have different residential streets lit up? You know, I've got an amazing group of friends in my neighborhood in Kitchener, and I'm really thinking that we could get creative about that. And I think they would support me. A lot of them know some of the volunteer work that I do and the work that I do, and it's all related to helping people live their best life in spite of whatever pain condition they have. So you
That would
got
be
me.
awesome. That would be so awesome.
Tell me about your background. It's lit up in purple.
That
You're
background is Summerside, Prince Edward Island, my hometown. So
oh,
I live in Nova Scotia, but my heart comes from Prince Edward Island. So yes, Prince Edward Island. Summerside was one of the very first people who jumped on board for our campaign. And if you notice, I don't know if it's my left or right because these screens are reversed, but there's actually a fibromyalgia ribbon on the side of their building. So
I
they're
s-
and they really promote it on their own website. So we've had a really good response from the landmarks and buildings and cities. They've posted their own individual posts, and they've shared our posts, and they've thanked us, and it's just been a really great experience. And it'll be nice to work with you again, Lynn. And because Lynn and I don't think we ever say this, but we've known each other for 14 years, about roundabout. We worked on a project way back 14 years ago. It was a fibromyalgia project. So it'll be nice to work with you again. And I did forget something. Thank you, Janice, for reminding me. We also had lots of proclamations from cities who declared cities, towns, villages who declared May 12th Fibromyalgia Awareness Day. So, and I think we're going to get next year, that's going to be our plan to get more proclamations as well. So,
it's just amazing because enthusiasm about this can catch on,
mhm.
and that's what we really need. You know, I have been a volunteer surrounding fibromyalgia since 1989 with the home support group here in Kitchener. And um, the struggles that we had, you know, to, to have fibrositis at that time, it was called, to have it recognized, believed, acknowledged, whatever word you want, and all the struggles and disability issues, ability issues that came from it, not to mention the pain. And then, you know, heck, I remember designing for the former Ontario Fibromyalgia Association sweatshirts that said fibromyalgia is as real as I am,
Oh,
because at that time it it was not recognized as a true condition. And I think of all the people and all the years, all the effort that has gone into getting everything to the point where um, FAC is getting traction now about fibromyalgia. And it's thanks to your work that you are where you are in Canada and beyond. So I'm thrilled about it.
Keeping in mind, your is fact, like so fact, because it's working together, right? It's the
Yes.
working together. And we have a good group that we work with. So it's awesome.
And oftentimes people think, well, I'm so challenged with my lack of energy, with the fatigue,
Mm,
with the pain, with just trying to breathe and live with fibromyalgia. How could I possibly volunteer? How could I possibly make a difference for this movement? You know what? I remember when I felt like that all those years ago, and somebody said to me, all you have to do is just talk a bit about it and share your struggles, but also share some of the positive things that you're doing in spite of it. And so, anybody listening, please keep that in mind. It's every single person adding their voice to the movement. And as long you can share challenges, but I really feel it's important to share a resource at the end of it, or um, or share something positive that you're doing, which then can shift things towards positive outcomes.
yes, I
So,
agree. And I see Mario wrote in the chat, and I agree.
mm,
Volunteering and is a distraction from the pain, and
mhm.
it's I think that's why I get so involved, because it helps, right? It really does help, and it's been proven by research
Yeah.
that volunteering is helpful to deal with pain. So uh, and the thing is that we're all in the same boat. So when I can't find a word, somebody finds it for me, or they're patient and they wait for me to find it. So, it is uplifting, because I can be exhausted when I start and energized when I finish. So it really is an advantage.
I hear you about that. I know that getting involved in that support group all those years ago gave me a place to start building back my self-esteem that had
Mhm.
taken such a kicking from the unrelenting pain and the fibromyalgia. And it really helped me. There was positive modeling in this group for me, and I could see where others had lived with fibro longer than me and were able to work in spite of it, to volunteer in spite of it. That's where I learned about pacing and prioritizing in action. It's one
Yes,
thing to read about the value of of pacing and prioritizing, but to see it in action from mentors,
yes.
people who become mentors, that really makes a difference. So I don't know, it's a good place to get involved and have your voice heard and then be part of the solution, I think. So for
And
heaven's
and
sakes,
you learn so much, Lynn. You
oh my
really do.
gosh. Yes, yes. And if it's not in a support group, it can be involved in an organization that's welcoming like FAC. I'm not able to be on the board as some of your incredible board members do, and you do and invest that. But there are other things I can do, like advocate for FAC to be very much involved in the launching of at the population of resources and launching of the new disease specific fibromyalgia page on the Power Over Pain portal, poweroverpain.ca. I'm going to put that information in. We're still working on that. The that page is not yet launched. It's going to take a while yet. But just think, Trudy, that FAC is going to be involved in this. Awesome.
Yes, and definitely FAC appreciates the work that you've done, Lynn, to get us there. So it's great. And it's like sticking together. Together we're stronger. So it's all about working together. So yeah, it's really great.
Yeah. And speaking about working together, we haven't been together for a little while.
That's
And
right.
and that's on me, folks. I guess I had a fibro flare. I really just don't know, but February, March, April, I was getting some very disruptive, uh, unexplained pain that was happening for me. And so I needed to take the time to get all of that investigated. Everything seems to be okie dokie, as they say. The investigations came back. I'm a very healthy person. And so the unexplained is totally, thanks, Janice. The unexplained is totally fixing itself. And I'm continuing on with my exercise programs and, really getting back into it now. And, um, but, it was disruptive for a while, darn painful too, and kind of scary because I
Mm.
wasn't sure what was going on. Um, but this is where I want to come from in this little segment. It's, for a little short period of time, I thought, well, it could be fibro, it could be my other pain condition. Don't know. Let's just manage things and see how it's going. But it reached a point where I decided that I needed to investigate. And it's a message that we as people with fibromyalgia need to have once in a while, I think, Trudy.
Mhm.
It's if things are going along and they're not the usual type of pain that you expect, then there comes a time when it's important to investigate because it might be something else.
Yes, and I have always said to my doctor, because I have costochondritis, so I get chest pain, and I have for a number of years. And I always said to her, I won't know if I'm having a heart attack or I've just have costochondritis because I have thought I was having a heart attack and made a visit to the ER to be, and they do all the cardiac workup. And when you come back clean, it's like, yeah, you just wasted our time, get out the door, right? So I'm not exactly excited about going back in, but it's difficult to tell. So since then, I've tried to wait it out to see, and having a nurse, being a nurse in my previous life,
Mhm.
I I do know the symptoms. I do know what to look for, but it's not always easy for everyone to know, is this fibro this time or is it something else? And I would suggest that if you think in any way that it could be something else, you get it checked out. And I want to say, Lynn, I'm so glad it was nothing else. I'm always good to have a fibro flare and not a
Yeah.
heart attack or not some other condition. And you look so much better than the last time I saw you when you did struggle to do a fibro chat through all that pain. So
Mhm.
I'm sure everybody appreciates it, but I'm certainly glad you're feeling better.
I think I looked like something the cat dragged in for a little while, but I'm thrilled to be back and moving around. Um, but you know what, Trudy? I'm mindful of what I went through. I've noted what took place. I have a little health file that I keep. Um, just because, like everybody, life gets in the way. Plus, we have fibro, so we can forget things
Mhm.
if we don't really focus in on them, So I've just minuted a little something for myself so that if something were to come up again, then I'd be able to remind myself of it. Uh, so I'm so thrilled to be back with you. And I'm looking forward to what other topics that we're going to do in our
Mm,
Fibro chats. And I'm delighted that to hear that people are actually going on the YouTube channel and having a look-see at the videos.
yes,
I think
that's
that's
it's always rewarding when that happens,
mhm.
right? So,
So I would encourage people who are listening, who are online now and who are uh, watching the video, if you have any topics that you would like us to touch upon, um, please send those ideas to FAC. And I know that Mario's put the contact information into the chat, so I think that that's important.
isn't it great having him back there?
Oh my gosh. Yes, it
And
is.
you just know, okay, that's taken care of. So,
That's
yeah,
wonderful. And so not only are we meeting within the last few days of recognizing fibromyalgia in May, in Canada, we're also having this talk take place in National Accessibility Week for Canada.
yes,
And this year, that the week is happening May 26th to June 1st. So we're kind of right in the middle of it. And Trudy and I wanted to spend a little bit of time highlighting this week. And I've got some really cool resources that I will put into the chat and I can tell you about. But this is an important week for people with fibromyalgia because since the Accessibility Act was passed in 2019, um, this week has existed and they've been building it and building it. And if I may, Trudy, I'm just going to look here at a different screen. I'm going to read a little bit about this week, and then I think we can explore some of the challenges that people with fibro have and why this week can make a difference. So they're saying that National Accessibility Week takes place from May 26 to June 1 this year under the theme of Forward Together. I love that. Accessibility and inclusion for all. So this week provides an opportunity to mark the importance of contributions made by Canadians with disabilities. Yay, people with fibro. Um, and to put a spotlight on leadership of those who work tirelessly to make our country more accessible and disability inclusive. Yay, FAC and everybody
yes,
else.
yes. And I think
So,
it's particularly important to people with fibromyalgia because of this act and because of weeks like this.
mhm,
Invisible disabilities are getting more recognized.
yes,
When I first started my work with patient engagement and research, invisible disabilities wasn't even a word. So, it is a slow process, but I think we're getting there. And having that recognized is so important for people with fibromyalgia because we have an invisible disability.
absolutely. And uh, I don't know about you, but when I go out into the world or when I'm on camera, I try to look my best and do my best, all of that. Um, that actually may not be how I'm truly feeling.
Mhm.
Clearly, we're both sitting here with some level of pain happening in our bodies, some level of fatigue, and some level of cognitive struggle because of the fibro fog. But those who are watching probably can recognize it, but others might not. And we put our best foot forward. And so when we go out and actually say something, go through our day, you have to do things in the world, grocery shopping, going to appointments, general living, going and visiting people. And if you were having an absolutely horrible day, you wouldn't be able to do that. People don't see those things, they see you out in the world. So there can be a huge lack of understanding.
And judgment. There can
Yes.
be judgment
Yeah.
because if you're on some type of disability, you're not working, you're on workman's compensation, anything like that, they look at you and say, how can you be on disability? Because you look just fine. And you're doing this and this and this. I've had that said to me, actually, that you couldn't possibly have fibromyalgia because if you did, you wouldn't be able to do all those things, which is a myth that we need to break, actually. That's a myth that you can't function while you have fibromyalgia. And I totally agree with you with the pain, the cognitive dysfunction, and the exhaustion. So I totally agree, but you just keep going, right?
Well, you do, but there's also the pacing and all of that that
Yes.
are important for us to be doing too. There can be a lot of disbelief associated with fibromyalgia um, in all the systems that we interact with as people. So there can be the workplace system, the
Mhm.
healthcare system, society at large, and our families. And also, if you happen to be involved in the workers' compensation system. And we can be summarily judged as complainers, malingerers, drug seekers, and fakers.
Yes.
And a lot of, and anything, any condition that causes chronic pain or persistent pain. Individuals struggling with that and struggling to stay at work um, can have a lot of difficulties. And so they're focusing now through the work uh, that has taken place to create this week to highlight all the organizations, including the Canadian Injured Workers Alliance, for whom I work part-time. And they they're trying to highlight this week, but the work and the work needs to go on every day all year long.
Yes. Like a lot of other awareness, the
Mm-hmm.
work needs to go on. So we recognize things on this week and every other week, right? So we do that a
Yes.
lot in our posts. So, African, Nova Scotia, well, not just Nova Scotia, but Black History Month, this month and every month.
Yeah.
We really have to start stressing things like that. But interestingly, I am finding as the years progress, when I used to say I had fibromyalgia, no one had a clue what I was talking about. But more and more, I find when I say to the ordinary person, I have fibromyalgia, I will hear, and something I heard a lot through our illumination campaign is, of course, we'll light for you. My aunt has fibromyalgia. My mother has fibromyalgia, or I have fibromyalgia. And of course, we get a lot of illuminations that way. The
Mm-hmm.
place I find we still struggle is the healthcare system. We are still seen there as the problem. And but as more and more Canadians start to recognize fibromyalgia, and something that we talked about yesterday at our AGM is more and more people are being diagnosed across Canada all the time. And I think, sadly, as that number increases, then there has to be increased recognition of the condition as well, right, by ordinary people. And so I find I get more recognition from the ordinary person than I do from the healthcare system.
Okay. Well, we have a long way to go for
Mm-hmm.
education, knowledge building, and knowledge mobilization
Yes.
within the healthcare system. And where it starts, I think, I do a lot of this related to persistent pain, is getting into the pre-licensure programs and talking, so physiotherapy, occupational therapy,
Yes.
Nursing. I just did a presentation for the Ontario Occupational Health Nurses Association about living with chronic pain, musculoskeletal condition, and chronic pain last Friday. So it's getting in with the associations and in with the pre-licensure schooling, and also into the health sciences
Yes.
programs to share our lived experience in a frank and productive way, I
So
think.
I do a fair number of presentations on, especially to Dalhousie, because it's a research facility. I do a
Yes.
lot on patient engagement and research. And when I do that, I introduce myself as having fibromyalgia. So I try to kill two birds with one stone. And I'm there to really encourage them to make sure they include patients in their research.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I educate them on fibromyalgia and what it is, because sometimes I'm the only reference they get to fibromyalgia. They study
Mm-hmm.
chronic pain, but they don't, and they study a very limited amount of
Of
chronic
chronic
pain
pain.
in, especially in medical school. But I they don't always break it down into different segments like fibromyalgia. So I make sure I educate on fibromyalgia as well. We have to take every chance we get to make sure we're spreading the word, right?
Yeah, very true. And I know when the work injury happened for me, Trudy, and then I developed fibromyalgia, the then healthcare provider who gave me the diagnosis said this: you may as well you may as well realize this. You're never going to work again, and you should go and find someone to marry you and take care of you.
I laugh,
Now,
but that's awful, really.
that was terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
You're laughing because it's hard to even comprehend. Now,
Yes.
mind you,
And it's ridiculous.
that was 30 years ago. That was the attitude then.
Wow.
By that particular individual. You know what? We have so many healthcare providers who are sensitized and who are very helpful
Hmm.
uh,
Yes, we do.
about fibromyalgia, my family doctor included. I'm so lucky. So, um, but that was a challenge. That was quite a slap. I felt as though I had been slapped in the face. And that was really something to overcome. And
Yes.
and um, we just, I'm so glad things aren't like that anymore, but we still got a long way to go.
We do. Sadly, our
Yeah,
members,
yeah.
and this was brought to our attention yesterday, was that they get this diagnosis and they're told it's a chronic condition, you'll have it the rest of your life, and there's no known treatment. And that's it. That's the end of the appointment. And they don't get
Oh,
any
seriously.
resources, they don't get
Hmm.
any information. It's just, it's sad, but it's still happening that people with fibromyalgia are just out there in the abyss, right? And so they're very happy when they find FAC. So, but there still needs to be a change. At least most doctors, and I am being very generous when I say most doctors, recognize it as a condition and diagnose it, because a lot of doctors still will not diagnose fibromyalgia. So,
Um, there, that can happen. I'll tell you one doctor who you know very well, who has some amazing videos on her YouTube channel, is Dr. Andrea Furlan.
yes,
And she's been a speaker for FAC, and she believes that fibromyalgia exists. And um, I actually work with Dr. Furlan on the Echo Chronic Pain and Opioid Stewardship Hub for educating healthcare providers about chronic pain and opioid stewardship. And many, many times in those sessions that we have pretty much every week with about 50 healthcare providers, there is some reference to fibromyalgia, FAC, power over pain for resources, and things like that. And she is a huge advocate and educator about fibromyalgia. So for anyone who's looking for some supports for
yes,
fibromyalgia, go to Dr. Andrea Furlan and her YouTube channel. Lots of supports related to chronic pain management and exercises and things like that. Again, though, um, all of these things are not meant to take the place of you consulting your own healthcare providers on
yes,
these things. I wanted you to know, Trudy, that I put in a whole bunch of resources into the chat. Um, that so that there is the link actually to the Accessibility Week homepage for individuals. And at the bottom of that homepage, you're going to find some of the resources that I'd really like to highlight. And all of these resources have come out of the Accessibility Act and the work that the federal government is doing. And this is way more than what was ever available for me all those years ago. So the first resource that you can check out is the Canada Disability Benefit, and that will take place or will be started in July 2025, and it's for individuals with disabilities between the ages of 18 and 64. And so you can read more information about that and find out how to apply for it. There's also the Canada Disability Benefit, and you can check that one out. Also, the Registered Disability Savings Plan, which is something that they are bringing forward where the government can do matching grants
mhm,
um, for what an individual with lower income can put aside for retirement savings, something that was never there for me. And so, I actually have to plan very carefully for the money that I have coming in. I wasn't able to really set aside money over the years. Um, Very grateful for the support I did get, but there was not this option. So I think it's pretty incredible. Then there is another grant opportunities fund for persons with disabilities. And what I've learned about that one is it helps to support individuals to prepare for, um, to get, and to maintain employment, which I think for um, people of working age who have fibromyalgia, that might be of help. And then, of course, we do know about the Canada Pension Disability Benefit, CPPD for short. And so that requires an application.
Yes.
There are also grants for organizations that help to support individuals with disabilities. So possibly, Trudy, get your grant finding people on this one, because there may be an option for FAC, for a program that you might be able to get going there.
I made a note of that, Lynn. Thank you.
Yeah. And also, I just before I stop some of this, I wanted to share that the Power Over Pain portal has been doing panel discussions with its Lived Experience Advisory Committee, and I co-chair that committee. And that, just a little bit of background about that committee. It's been working for about 2 years now, and those members have applied their lived experience to help shape what the portal looks like, how people navigate on the portal, the resources that go on the portal,
Mm.
which are always free, just so that you know. And so, starting last fall, um, we got some traction on panel discussions about different issues impacting people with pain. This one on May the 30th from 6:30 to 7:30 is going to be about chronic pain, disability, and the workplace. So we're actually going to look at that invisible disability issue that we just talked about. And also, um, we're going to outline 3 different workplace scenarios: full-time work, getting into work as a young person, as a teenager, and then returning to work after an injury. And then we're also going to look at what would make a difference for some of our panel members in being able to have their disability recognized at work. So I'll put that in the chat as well.
Thank you. And we will post that on our social media. And so people can sign up.
Appreciate that. And so I will post that in the chat. And I think those were my to-dos for all of those resources for everyone. I hope when you take a look at those resources that some of them are going to be helpful for you as a person with fibro. And back to you for a minute or two. I'm just going to post something.
Okay, so the Canada Disability Benefit we are very familiar with. FAC really did a lot of work on in making sure people with fibromyalgia were included and things that we wanted amended. And that we actually been working on that for over a year. And we're very happy to say that some of our recommended amendments were actually incorporated into the law.
Wow.
And while we appreciate the fact that disability benefit will be starting next July, the amount is fairly low. So we are going to, FAC is going to continue campaigning and advocating for an increase in that amount of money. We'd like to see everyone with disabilities, whether that be invisible or visible disabilities, live above the poverty line. And right now they don't. And a lot of people who are on disability don't. And so it would be great if the disability benefit could bring them up enough to do that. Some people on disabilities get paid fairly well, and then other people don't, right? So it's
The
it's a mixed bag, isn't it? Because there's insurance like Manulife, there's workers' compensation, there's CPPD. So it all depends where you get your money, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And um, I think the also relating to disabilities employment.
Mm-hmm.
So often it feels like you're either disabled or you're working full time.
Yes,
There's nothing or very little in between. So um, what I mean by that is if you're receiving some sort of financial support, there can be challenges in figuring out could you work part-time and have a top up from your funder to be able to actually live, because it can be difficult to live on part-time money.
yes, yes, especially
Okay.
now.
It can be very difficult to do that. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to go into that yet, Trudy. That was
Yes,
my experience. If at one point, if I either worked full time or there I was devalued and there wasn't that option.
yes, I agree.
So I'm not sure if I
And
worded
there's
that
not,
very well, but it was an awful place to be in.
yes,
And
it,
it's
it
time for that to stop.
it's that abyss that we were talking about. And,
Mhm.
there's never accommodations for, say, if you worked full time, then maybe you could go down to part time and see if that works, or work from home and see if that works. But it's
Mhm.
usually, like you said, you are either full time or you're not. And there's nothing really offered in between a lot of times with depending on your employer, it can be a
Yes,
lot can depend on your employer. So
and the other supports that could come in um, to create more of an ableism, an ability focused employment structure in Canada, where if you're able to work part time, think of all the value that you're adding to the country, to your for
yes,
your co-workers, and think of what it does in self-esteem and and just a general feeling of well-being for the person. If there can be supports through some of the government funding that can help to top you up to a living wage rather than trying to live on disability monies that
Mhm.
cost the government and the funders more than if you were working part-time, adding to the value, your values to the workforce and receiving a top up. So I think there can be more discussions on that. It would be
Yes.
so much better to focus on ableism rather than disabilities. I, you know where I run into disability? I run into disability when I travel and
Mm.
I can't I take the option to go and sit in the aircraft or on the train earlier. I sit in the accessible car on the train. I make arrangements to check my bag because I can't lift, should not lift my a carry-on, anything, any kind of weight above my head. I came up against disability with my financial funders then. I don't have that anymore, but it really was a challenge. I don't think of myself as disabled.
No,
I I work to work within what I can do, and I'm darn proud of all the things that I can do for myself. And so I would rather focus on that. And I think our systems need to change how they see us and how they help us or don't
I
help.
agree. And even the Income Tax Act, I mean, if we're going,
Mm,
blue skying it, even the Income Tax Act, because if you're on a disability, I see this so much with people. If they're on a disability and they are part of a research project and they are going to compensate them, and they can't accept that compensation
yeah.
because it messes up their disability and it messes up their income tax. So,
Mhm.
there's certainly lots of areas that still needs improvement. That's for sure. We're
Yes,
getting to the end of our time, Lynn.
we are. I think I wore my community organizer hat a lot today. I hope that was all right.
That was fine. And I'm thinking about it when you were talking about, I don't think of myself as disabled either. And I don't actually use that word because I don't think of myself as disabled. I mean, look at all the productive work we're doing. And,
Mm,
I think I'm more productive now than when I was working. So, when I'm measuring productivity, as in, it, I think maybe what we're doing now makes a bigger difference. And so, yeah, it's difficult, that's for sure. So, and mostly it's difficult. The bureaucracy is very difficult to get through. So, but thank you so much for this. And we'll have
yeah.
to, if anybody has a topic, I know one of the topics that was mentioned to me was fibromyalgia and the heat for June, July, August. It's difficult
Okay.
for some people to handle the heat and humidity in those months. Now, I love the
Yes.
heat, but I think I'm learning that I'm a minority. So maybe we should do some chatting about that.
Well, why not? I'm
Yeah.
going to be away for a little bit. I have a trip of a lifetime happening. I'm going to go to Europe for a, about a
Oh,
couple of weeks soon. So we'll have to
wow, that's
schedule
awesome.
we'll have to schedule something for um, a little bit later in June or early July. How's that?
That would be great. Well, that's
Yeah,
a wonderful trip. You
I
should have
know.
scheduled that for the Olympics, Lynn. You would have been over for the Olympics.
Well, you know what? No. It's all right. I'm an armchair Olympian. I
Oh,
watch them and I cheer on Canada.
me too.
My
Me too.
Chesterfield on and watch it on TV.
Me too. That's exactly where I watch it. Even when it was here in Canada, I thought, no, I watch that on TV. Thanks.
Well, take care, everyone. We hope that this Fibro chat with Trudy and Lynn has brought you a few laughs, and you've learned a little something maybe you didn't know, or you're recognizing something, and you're having something confirmed for you about fibromyalgia, and we hope those resources will help too.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, everybody. Take care. And hopefully we'll see you next month. Have a good
Bye.
trip, Lynn.
Thanks. Bye-bye.